There's a book there, Max, if you would like to look, read along. Did you pick it up, Vinayak?
I already have.
Okay, there should be one on the table, isn't there? All right. Okay, will you hit the box so I don't screw it up?
Got it. Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Teamwork.
So we've started on the 9th. Oh, for you, Max, those two chants we did at the beginning. The first one is 3 verses from a piece called the Hymn to the Guru. So the tradition is we always start, or I always start, by paying my respects to my teacher, Swami Chimayananda. And then the second chant is one of the traditional, what we call a Shanti mantra. Mantra means like a song, a hymn. So it's a peace chant that we do, and it invokes that our study be well done together. So these are little traditional things that are done as part of the tradition. Don't need to know. So in the 9th chapter, this is entitled Raja Vidya Raja Guhyam, the royal science, royal knowledge, the royal secret. And we were introduced last week to a technical term called avyaktaha, which means the unmanifest. Now, for you, Max, we've been marching our way through this text. So if there's stuff you don't understand or have a question, please feel free to ask. My teacher used to say, I don't want any stupid questions. And he'd say, the only stupid question is the one you don't ask. So questions are good. So avyakta, which means unmanifest. And we were introduced to this idea. And you and I talked about this a bit yesterday. In yoga, the principal idea is that God does not create the world the way a potter creates a pot. When you've got a potter creating a pot, you've got 3 elements. You've got the material cause of the pot, which is clay. That's different than the potter. You've got the instrument, the instrumental cause, which is the potter's wheel. It's where the potter makes the pot. And then what we call the efficient cause, which is the potter himself or herself. But when it comes to the world, we don't have those 3 elements. Who has manifested the infinite creation? God. Where did he do it? In himself. What did he make it out of? Himself. So these 3 kinds of causations are all merged into one. And the idea, this becomes very simple to understand if we go to the dream state. So we're going to let Max be our guinea pig tonight. So have you had a dream this past week?
Yes, I think.
What'd you dream?
I dreamt that I flew back to Charlotte.
Okay, you flew back to Charlotte. On a plane or on a bird or what?
On a plane.
On a plane. Okay, so in the dream, you had a dream body, and there was a locus of perception. In that dream body, you were peeping out at the dream world. Is that right? And a dream ego. It seemed like I am the Max of the dream. And then you had a dream world of name and form on the outside. Maybe there was an airport, you were in the plane, you were looking at the passengers. And then you had a dream world of feelings and thoughts inside. Oh, this is really coolly flying in a plane, or oh my God, I don't want to go back to Charlotte. I don't know what you were feeling. But you see, you have those same dynamics that we have in the waking state. But every single element of the dream was made up of your own mind. What was the material cause of your dream? My own mind. What was the instrumental cause of my dream? My own mind. Who did it? Me, my own mind. So I like to say, you are the God of your dream. And what yoga says is, this world is like a dream. It comes about with the same kind of process. Listen carefully. Your little ego isn't doing the dreaming. That is the Lord who's doing. So out of the Lord's unmanifest, and here we want to think of this as what we call the total vasana. And this is a word that you're not familiar with yet. Vasana is an impression left in the unconscious as the result of previously performed actions. So what I did in the past leaves an impression which then impels me into doing stuff now. So let's see if we can use an example. Vinayak, what do you do for a living?
I'm an engineer.
Okay, so you don't wake up as an interior designer.
No.
No. How did you get to be an engineer?
By doing engineering things.
You went to school, you studied, you practiced, blah, 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 blah. So the force of the past is what's impelled your activity today. Now, when you go to sleep at night, those impressions are still in there in an unmanifest form. So I'm a musician. I used to be a professional musician. I have the faintest idea how to do software engineering. And they charitably call me a tech-tard. But, you know, I've got books there on medieval music notation, which is probably stuff you would have no idea what a major or minor prolation in tempus perfectus is in medieval music, would you? Yes, no? Yeah. It's totally useless, by the way, to know that now.
I would like to know that.
I'll give you the book.
Thank you.
Okay. So, but the point is, these impressions are in a seed-like, unmanifest form in our minds. They are what cause us to do what we do. And this is called the unmanifest. Now, macrocosmically, it's the same way. There's what we would call the total vasana. What was there that caused the impulse of the Big Bang? So we could say it's the potentiality for everything that may manifest. See. You always want to look at it from macrocosm and microcosm. Then Krishna. Krishna is the pre-Christian Christ figure that we have in this text. He says, but there's a higher unmanifest. That is the ground of being. We were kind of working on that yesterday. So at an individual basis, it's this witnessing consciousness, pure awareness. Macrocosmically, it is pure existence, pure consciousness. substratum of the whole creation. All right. Again, if this is hard to understand for now, don't worry about it. We'll talk later. So are we on number 5?
Yes,
Could you help us out, Deepak?
sure. Nacha matsthani bhutani pashyame yogameshwaram bhuta bhutabrinna cha bhutastho mamatma bhuta bhavanaha. Nor do beings exist in reality in me. Behold my divine yoga supporting all beings, but not dwelling in them. I am myself, the efficient cause of all beings.
Yes. So we finished up last week with this idea that all beings are in consciousness, in God. Way back in the 4th chapter, Krishna says, all this is strung on me, like money sutre, like gems or pearls on a thread. Oh, that's cool. Everybody's got God inside them. See? This chapter, he said, well, actually, I'm not really in them. They are in me. Again, let's go to the dream state. So, do you incarnate into a dream? Are you in the dream, or is the dream in you? Well, it seems like I'm in the dream. Doesn't it? There you are on the plane going to South Carolina. Or is that North Carolina?
North Carolina.
North Carolina.
In the dream, maybe South Carolina.
But you see, the point is, it feels like I'm there inside my body, inside the plane. Whatever your dream is. But in fact, you are not in the dream. The dream is in you. Likewise, all the people, places, things, and conditions of this phenomenal world, they are in infinite consciousness. That's what we talked about last week. Now, with this verse, Krishna says, well, actually, they're not really in me. What do we mean by that? Let's go back to the dream state. Did you wake up in the morning with an airplane in bed with you?
No.
Was there someone sitting next to you on the plane in your dream?
I think I dreamt more about the action of going
to the airport?
Or more of just flying to Charlotte. In my dream, I sort of like, oh, I got a ticket to Charlotte, and then I was in Charlotte.
Did you wake up with the ticket on your pillow?
No.
So was the ticket real?
I would say not in that sense.
Yeah, it was certainly a real experience. But it wasn't real, it was imagination. So what Krishna is saying here, this is a difficult one for us to grasp in the West. This world is like a hologram. It's like a long, long, vivid dream. You ever seen the movie Inception?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Where they keep going from dream state to dream state to dream state to dream state. Very Vedantic movie. That's really what's going on. The only wrong thing about the movie is it says that there's actually a real waking state. Yoga would say, if you can see it, it's a dream state. What's real is this ground of being, this witnessing consciousness. Now, we're going to play with something here about the powerful nature of ignorance. So let's see. Yesterday we had that wonderful chocolate cake. Did you get a piece of the chocolate cake?
Mhm.
You did?
Yes.
And did you get one?
Mhm.
Oh, you missed a great piece of cake, dude. You didn't get one. You weren't there. Okay. So in your eye, a mind's eye, in your imagination, close your eyes and imagine a chocolate cake. How vivid can you make it? This one has layers of cream in it. So good. Fudgy frosting. Okay, open your eyes. What is the difference between imagining a chocolate cake and dreaming about a chocolate cake? There's a similarity and a difference. Similarity is the chocolate cake of your imagination and the chocolate cake of your dream are just created by your mind. Aren't they? But when it's just my imagination, I know it's an imagination. In the dream, because I've gone to sleep, I have this kind of deep not knowing, this deep ignorance. When I dream about the chocolate cake, to the dreamer, it seems real. Do you get that? So, all of us are spiritually asleep. We see this world of name and form. And because of our spiritual ignorance, our spiritual sleep, I think I'm my body and the world is separate from me. And that stuff out there is pretty solid and real. And it has the power to make me unhappy or make me happy. All of this is serious business. What Krishna's saying in this verse is that's not what's really going on. What's really going on is there's consciousness here. This ground of being that never moves, that's birthless, changeless, deathless, and in it, like a hologram, the world appears. So what? Now, I was talking with my friend Ron and Walt. They were at the party yesterday. And they would see a movie. Is there a new Marvel movie out?
Black Widow.
What is it?
Black Widow.
Yeah, Black Widow. I have no idea what it's about. But I assume Black Widow is some super hero character.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, probably people die and things get blown up and there's chase scenes. I haven't seen the movie yet. I don't know. So you go see that and all this violence and action stuff happens. And you leave and say, oh man, that was a really great movie. Now, what's the difference between that and, let's say, a traffic pileup on Grand Avenue where 10 cars crash, and or like when we heard about that lady, she and her baby got stuck underneath this drunk driver's car or something like that. Well, that's real, Jim. That's not the same. yoga would say, maybe it's not as real as you think it is. Sarva Maya, Sarva Mana. All this is Maya, means a great illusion. All is actually this. I am not in them, they are in me, and they're not really in me. Hold my divine Maya, illusory power of the infinite, which brings all of this about. One of the most important verses in Gita. Would you read the English one more time? So with this particular understanding of this discussion, you get a sense of what this verse really means.
Nor do beings exist in reality in me. Behold my divine yoga supporting all beings, but not dwelling in them. I am myself, the efficient cause of all beings.
Yes. So my divine yoga, my union with the world of matter, which is really nothing but mental imagery. It is the support of it all. And here he says that he's the efficient cause. He's the one who's doing it. Yet none of it ever touches him. Now, this is for Max because he's new. When Krishna talks about himself, the invitation here is it's true about you and me. Just like when Jesus in the Bible uses these I am statements, he's not the great exception, he's the great example. He shows us what it is to be a fully human person. Krishna's saying the same thing. Same thing. So if this is difficult to understand, difficult to grasp, just put it on the shelf. Let's go on to the next verse. Any questions before we go on?
Hey, Jim, it's Marcos.
Hi, Marcos.
How are you? Good.
I'm well.
Good. Yeah, I have a question. Is it related at all to the that layer that you described, the layers of reality? Is that related at all to Lila, the cosmic game? Like,
Say that again.
Is it related to Lila, the cosmic game, like that concept?
Leela.
Leela, my
Is how
bad.
it's
My bad.
pronounced.
Okay. And I don't really know what that is either. So I'm just trying to kind of tie things
No,
together.
it's a great question. Leela means play or sport. And the word Leela, which means play, has the same dual meaning as the word play in English. So, for example, I can go across the street into the park and I can see the kids tossing a ball back and forth. They are playing. Kids go out and play, they have fun.
Mhm.
Or I can go to Berkeley Repertory Theater and I can go see a play. So Leela can mean sport. It can also mean like a drama.
Mm.
Now, let me finish the idea.
Absolutely.
So the idea is the Lord is doing all this. Do not attribute to the infinite anthropomorphic motivation. Oh, God's lonely. That's why he created people. Nonsense. God wanted us to know him. No, it's sport, lila. But it's also play like a drama. So when the actor goes out on the stage on Monday night, he may play a hero, and on Tuesday night, he may be a villain. But those are just roles that he plays. So every single person is wearing a costume called their body, and they're playing a role in the divine Leela, the drama. Everyone says their lines perfectly too. But the being inside is Krishna. Is never really touched. Is that helpful?
Very helpful. Thank you very much. Would it be accurate also to say that it's adding beauty to it, right? Or whimsy, or like to the cosmic ordering?
Well,
or not be?
What is beauty? That's a very good question.
I think for me, it'd be like a superior measurement of the thing's internal logic of itself. Like if it doesn't, like the beauty and the structure, I guess, of something, the internal logic.
When we find something beautiful, what happens to our minds?
It gets enraptured in itself.
Exactly. So we'll get into this idea later on. You're really touching something very important. We would call this aesthetic theology.
Mm-hmm.
Or theological aesthetics, so that when we see beauty, we love, we're enraptured.
Mm-hmm.
And in the end, it's an unconscious acknowledgement of the divinity of something. It's a wonderful point.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Very good question.
Thank you so much, Tim. Appreciate it.
That's a great question. What is beauty? Why do I find someone or something beautiful? And of course, that's always relative. As far as physical beauty, very much culturally determined. Music. Fang, you ever heard Chinese opera?
Yes, not my cup of tea.
Oh,
My grandmother's cup of tea.
she loves it?
Yeah, she likes it.
Yeah. It sounds like nails on a blackboard probably to you, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And I suppose if she went to hear Madame Butterfly, she wouldn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
All cultural. Those of us who were hearing Omni sing yesterday, Westerners, yeah. All right. Sure isn't, James Brown, But beauty, each person knows when they find it beautiful. Very good point. All right, next verse.
Hey, Jim, can I ask a follow-up question to that?
Is that Katie?
No, this is Deepa.
Oh, hi, Deepa.
So I'm fascinated by the feeling of awe that you experience when you see beauty in art, music, or anything. And it's close to what, one might experience in meditative states. So
Yes.
you're the first person ever that has brought up aesthetic theology or beauty and studying that as a part of theology. When you say, like, we'll come to it later, you mean in the Gita, or we'll address beauty in the Gita as well?
Actually, no. We'll have to have a private discussion about it. It's actually covered a bit in Narada Bhakti Sutra.
Okay.
Where you find it. But the idea of theological aesthetics or aesthetic theology is very much a whole field of Western theological study. but it's very much there in Vedanta. If you ask the question, why do I find something beautiful and somebody else doesn't? And more importantly, what happens to my mind in the presence of what I think of as beauty? And the greater the beauty, the greater the love. And it doesn't have to be a human work of art. You can go out to Ocean Beach and just watch the sunset and be incredibly overcome. Now, real live experience. So back in the 70s, there used to be these two famous opera singers, Joan Sutherland and, oh God, I'm having a major memory thing here.
Jesse Norman.
No, it was the mezzo that she sang with all the time. Anyway, these two opera singers. And it was like one mind coming through two voices. And they'd come down to the sweet spot on the stage. They did a lot of what we call bel canto literature. And they would do these incredible duets. And they made it sound so easy, and their voices were so gorgeous. And when they'd finish, there would be this incredible silence. Then the thunderous applause. But that moment, what you called the awe, this suspension of everything, that's coming very close to what samadhi is. All right, next verse.
Yatha kasha sthito nityam vayu sarvatra gomahan tatha sarvani bhutani matstanityupadharaya. As the mighty wind moving everywhere rests always in space, the akasha, even so know you all beings rest in me.
So all the winds that blow, and they create all this force and havoc and create cyclones and hurricanes, or move sailboats, positive, negative, everything. But the space in which it occurs is the container, but it's never touched by it. So also, this Chidakash, this space of consciousness, is sthita. It's still, it's established. All the phenomenal world moves in it. Now, this consciousness pervades the creation. Most important ramification of this is your butt in the creation, y'all. That means this stillness, this space of awareness pervades you. What part of you partakes of that? Well, it's not my body, it's always changing. It's not my feelings, they're always changing. Not my thoughts, they're always changing. And it's not my thoughts of self. They too are always changing. But this experience of I It's always there. Doesn't go up, doesn't go down. In the end, it's not really inside or outside, above or below. Here's the glass. The glass is in space. So there's space inside the glass, there's space outside the glass. If I were to break the glass, would anything happen to the space? Magic trick. See the space inside the glass? Did I move space? The glass moved in space. The space was sthita. Establish, standing still. Keep checking out yourself. You quieten the mind in the space between thoughts with this radical reversal of the attention. See if you can notice the knower. It's like trying to see your eyes. It's like trying to taste your tongue. It's like trying to shine a flashlight on its own batteries. You never see yourself as an object. But even though you have never seen your eyes, you know what you see. Likewise, even though no one has ever known the self as an object, I know. Who sees the phone? I do. That's yourself. Find out what that is. Find out what that is. Any questions? Any thoughts? Next one.
The next one is a twofer.
Okay.
Sarva bhutani kaunteya prakritim yanti mamikam kalpakshaye punastani kalpadau visrujamyaham prakritim swamavashtabhya vrisujami punah punah bhutagramamimam kritsna mavasham prakritirvashat. All beings, O Kaunteya, go into my Prakriti. At the end of a kalpa, I send them forth again at the beginning of the next kalpa. Animating my Prakriti, I again and again send forth all this helpless multitude of beings by the force of nature, or Prakriti.
Yes. So first of all, for the Hindi speakers, Bhutani or Bhutas, they aren't ghosts. It means ghosts in Hindi. In Sanskrit, it means beings. Sarva Bhutani, all beings. So we talked about this unmanifest. So at the beginning of creation, the Big Bang, everything whoosh, comes forth. And we don't know what's going to happen when it all winds down. Yoga says there's some form of a big crunch. And then it happens again. And again. And again. Is this true? Is it provable? This is Hindu cosmology. May be true, may not be true. But I know personally, I don't know. I'm not smart enough. But let's look at it from the standpoint of the workings of our own mind. So out of my unconsciousness in deep sleep, in the morning, all the beings, meaning my activities, my feelings, my thoughts, my reactions, go forth. Then in the evening, I get tired, and they go back into their unmanifest form. People are going to sleep. And the next day, they're sent forth again. So this is the cycle of what happens to a human being. Now, there is some change based on my actions and reactions. Things are different from day to day. So we're using Max as a guinea pig because he's new. Why did you leave North Carolina?
So I needed a job.
You needed a job. So you had an impression, I need work. Silicon Valley, best place to go do it if you're into IT. Is that basically what you were thinking?
Oh, well, it was an opportunity that came up. So I wasn't actually looking at Silicon Valley, but it just ended up being the first opportunity to get me out. Yeah.
But the point is, you didn't stay in North Carolina. So all the impressions, I assume you had already learned computer programming and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Yeah. So you had all that, those impressions. Then they found a new sphere in which to express themselves. So what yoga would say is we move through various incarnations. Maybe Chinese, one lifetime, female. You may be male Indian the next lifetime. You may be fat white guy the next one. Who knows? Based on the impressions that we get, which then impel us into the next realm of experience. You don't have to believe in reincarnation to get value from it. All is about the same in terms of our lives. So that's where my activities, my feelings, my reactions and stuff come from. Now, there's an implication here. One of the series of talks that were made into books of Swamiji's, they were on the Gita, in fact, was called The Art of Man Making. Now we can say the art of human making, so it's not gender specific. So this thing called a human being is the greatest of all art forms. And you build it through a life, thought by thought, action by action. Night, those impressions go into their unmanifest form. Next day, you got a new palette as an artist upon which to work. Now, most people, their minds are stratified by the time they're teenagers. For the rest of their life, it's just rinse, repeat, lather, rinse, repeat, over and over. That's why when you go see a psychic, they can tell you what your future's going to be. All they're reading is what your past has been, basically. But a yogi knows that we can make changes. This art of being fully human. And it's not like we're bad people trying to be good, or sinners trying to be virtuous, or sick people trying to get well. I don't like any of those models. If you're out at the beach and you've got an easel set up and you're painting a seascape, you look at the ocean, you look at your painting, and you say, this cloud needs a little more silver on the bottom. That's very different than looking at the painting and then taking out a knife like, terrible painting, which is what most of us do inside. Most of us think I'm the piece of shit that the whole world revolves around. Low self-esteem with an ego complex. But no, we're just a work in progress. Just a work in progress. It's an art form. Now, as a musician, you never get to sing the song perfectly. I had a voice teacher who said, music is a hard mistress, you can never master her. You always work at it. You always work at it. We want to let go of this notion of perfectionism. Perfectionism at the level of the equipment is like trying to count to the highest number. You can't get there. But that's not the point. That's not the point. We're meant to be free. We're meant to enjoy our lives. The question is how I can. So out of the unmanifest, over and over again, all beings are sent forth. And at the end of the age, they come back. Then they go forth again. This again is Hindu cosmology. We can see it on an individual basis. Day to day, that's what happens in my life. Any questions? Next verse.
न च मां तानि कर्माणि निबध्नन्ति धनञ्जय उदासीन वदासीन मसक्तं तेषु कर्मसु. Sitting like one indifferent and are attached to these acts. Dhananjaya, these acts do not bind me.
So, even though the Lord sends forth creation over and over again with good people and bad people, spinning galaxies and black holes that are sucking it all up. Mind you, there's an enormous amount of both creation and destruction in the world. Biologists say that 99% of all the species that have ever existed on the planet Earth are extinct. Makes you think we're so special. But the self is never touched. Even within one lifetime, when you were a child, you had a little body with your experiences. You went through adolescence, body changed, all your experiences changed. You became an adult, you moved, you did different things. Everything changed again, but something has stayed the same. The still thing. It's never touched. One of the things knowledge of the self gives us is freedom from fear. To your own direct experience, whatever you've been through, you are still here. I tell you, even dying is perfectly safe. You will not be touched. Next verse.
Maya Dhakshena Prakriti Suyata Sacharacharam Hetunanena Kaunteya Jagatvit Parivartate. Under me as her supervisor, Prakriti produces the moving and the unmoving. Because of this, O Kaunteya, the world revolves.
So the last verse, we had our introduction to this word. It's happened in earlier chapters. Prakriti. Prakriti means nature. So it's the stuff out of which name and form are made. So what actually happens is that consciousness forms into subject object. The subject is what we would call the sentient phase. It's the knower. And what it sees is fundamentally inert. See if we can get a direct experience of that. So you know your body. Your finger doesn't know your thumb. You know them both. Even if you touch your finger to your thumb, you know the sensation. If you have two feelings, you have joy, you have sorrow. Joy doesn't know sorrow, sorrow doesn't know joy. I know them both. Whatever thoughts I have, one thought doesn't know another thought. I know all the thoughts. What are the thoughts, feelings, and the sense perceptions made out of? Well, we have words in Sanskrit that are very clear. English falls short. We have chitta, the stuff of mind. We have chaitanya, which means consciousness when we think of states of consciousness. Chit is pure awareness, immovable, sentient. Chaitanya, chit, is the stuff out of which all my images are made. If we go back to the dream, the stuff of my mind made all those images. But there's always a word and stuff known. Sometimes we say nirguna Brahman, Brahman, consciousness without qualities. Saguna Brahman with qualities. The most ancient language is Purusha Prakriti. Purusha spirit, Prakriti matter. But they're not really separate. Just like the stuff of your dream is not separate from you. So nature is not a second substance. And it is by this Brahman contact. Brahman is another name for the infinite, for God. It is that contact that animates. So both the moving and the unmoving. Normally we think of things and beings. Living creatures are beings, the chair, the table, those are things. What Krishna is saying here is from the standpoint of the bodies, even though they move, they are still Prakriti nature. Consciousness appearing as name and form. Again, when you imagine something, imagine a mountain, a chocolate cake, but you can also imagine an elephant walking along the road. Moving, unmoving. But it's still somehow separate from the knower of it all. And yet it's not separate. Looks like two, but it's not two. Called Advaita, not two. Bottom line, Chandogya Upanishad thunders, Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. Sarvam Idam, all this, meaning the whole phenomenal universe. Kalu, verily, this is the truth. Is Brahma, it's consciousness, appearing as a word. Now, for the jnani who experiences this, what it gives us is an incredible sense of connectedness, not alienation. In the Western world, I think our greatest example of that would be St. Francis. Brother, sun, sister, moon. He used to call his body brother ass, which I thought was always very funny. What did Swamiji say? Posted on Facebook a few days ago. The mind is like a monkey riding on the donkey of the body in the circus act of life. All right, next verse.
Avajananti mam mudha manushim tanumashritam param bhavamajananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. Fools disregard me when I dwell in human form. They know not my higher being as the great Lord of all beings.
So again, we can take this exoterically thinking, oh, Lord Krishna, he's if you look at the painting on the wall there, that's Krishna, the blue boy with the flute and all that business. And that's not what the verse means. So we can all say, look at Fang sitting here. Fools disregard that that's the Lord sitting there. They may think it's Fang, it's her body, it's her particular mind, it's all her issues, it's what she does, it's the work she does. But a fool, when they look at a person, only sees that. A wise person knows, when I look into anyone's eyes, bodies may be different, the feelings may be different, the actions are different, the thoughts are different, but there's a conscious being looking out of those eyes. That's the infinite. Each of us have different bodies. Each of us sees the room from a different viewpoint. Each of us has different feelings. Each of us has different thoughts. But when you look behind your eyes and notice the knower, just that vast, empty space of consciousness. Self in me is not like the self in you. The self in me is the self. It's all Krishna. It's all the infinite. Any thoughts on this? Yes.
Just the thought popped into my head, like a maze of mirrors, and looking at another consciousness. It's almost like a two-way sort of thing, where if we have a room full, if we only have two people, it's not really that confusing. But once you start getting 5, 10, 100,000 people, all the reflections going one way and another, and if it's just like, where is there one perspective? Is there one viewer? Are there multiple? Is it all just the phenomena?
Yoga says there's one viewer. Now, the metaphor I like to use, imagine I've got a big piece of butcher paper here, and there's half a dozen holes, pinholes. The room is dark. And you are seeing 6 lights. So the question is, are there 6 pen lights, one light behind each hole, or is there one flashlight? So if this pinhole looks at this pinhole and says, gee, I think the source of my being is light. Is it like yours? Well, I'm a flashlight. That's the source of my being. I don't know. Is my source of my being the same flashlight as you? Oh, I don't know. But it's one flashlight. There's not a bunch of cells. There's a bunch of bodies. There's a bunch of feelings. There's a bunch of minds. There's a bunch of egos. But there's only one of us here. Jesus said, he who has seen me has seen him who sent me. Always imagine Jesus looking right in their eyes. Or when he was standing in front of Pontius Pilate, Pilate says, what is truth? Jesus just looks right in his eyes. Scripture is silent. It says, I find no fault with this man. Fabulous, fabulous scene. Tune him up. Experience. All right, this is a good place to stop. What number are we on, sweetheart?
We stopped at 11. We'll start with 12 next week.
All right, we'll end here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. Thank you all.
Thanks, Jane.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Jim.
Deepa.
See you, everybody.
We can hang for a bit.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Jim.